What I bring with me is my team. We're an incident management team. So my team generally consists of 56 people. And I'll explain that a little. I know some of you are very familiar with this, but many of you aren't. And the reason I say team is because it all interacts with each other. I'll start with operations. You'll hear from Pat Seekins here in a minute, who's one of our operations section chiefs. So I call that our Army. Those are the people that are out on the ground. Those are the people that are in the air and the helicopters and the aircraft trying to suppress the fire. Initially, of course, we're going to concern ourselves with your houses, the infrastructure, what we call values at risk. So the houses that are threatened by the fire, the outbuildings, the pipelines, the water infrastructure, all manner of things that are of value to us. So then we have other functions that support the Army. Of course, no Army can move forward unless they have a good plan. So we have a planning section. No Army, of course, will march for very long unless they get good sleep, good water, good food. And so that's where our logistics section comes from. And of course, this Army doesn't march very far or very long without getting paid, so we have a finance section. And then those are what we call the command staff, and then we have kind of support staff for all of that. You just saw one of them, our information function, which Brenda heads up. We also have a safety function that makes sure that whatever we do is safe. And in this day and age with COVID, we also have a very experienced, somebody who deals with it every day. We have a COVID advisor that we brought with us. So just in short, that's kind of what we brought to bear to assist you folks in this situation here. I always explain it by saying, we hate that we're here. We wish we weren't here. But on the other hand, we're glad that we're here, and we'll only stay as long as we need to until the local capacity can that you have available to you, the local government, all your elected officials, the sheriff, everybody else can deal with we get it to a level that the local folks can take the situation back and deal with it with the capacity they have. So just wanted to give a quick explanation. If you're not familiar with incident management teams, I'll mention it earlier. We're glad we're here to help you, but we wish we weren't. But it is the situation, and we'll quietly slip away as fast as we can, as fast as we can suppress this fire. So with that, Pat Seekins, one of our operations section chiefs, will come up and give you a briefing on the actual fire.
All right, thanks, Dan. Like Dan mentioned, I'm Pat Seekins. I'm the operations section chief here on the Pine Gulch Fire for the Rocky Mountain Incident Management Team, Type 1. So to give you an update on the fire current status, we're at fire acreage is 86,120 acres. We have 824 total people assigned, and we're currently at 7% containment. So we'll get right into the actual update of where we're at with the fire and current conditions. So we'll start down here on the south end of the fire. South end of the fire here along the Book Cliffs, as you can kind of see from town, this fire has been hung up in the Book Cliffs for quite some time, so no real concerns there. However, most of the activity that most folks have been seeing from Grand Junction is this edge of the fire on the south end. This has been very active last couple days. This fire kind of moved throughout the night a couple nights ago and was moving pretty rapidly, putting on a pretty good glow and a lot of smoke coming from this area. So this has definitely been our primary focus along with a few other areas, but we've got a lot of resources in here now. Taking a look at options on what we can do here to kind of keep the fire contained from progressing to the south, and then also to keep the fire from progressing to the east. So what we have currently in place, some crews and some heavy equipment, improved a two-track road system. If you can see this here, that kind of goes to the south and connects with another road system, and then it shoots off to the west and ties into an existing burn scar, a recent burn scar, the Hunter Fire from July of this year. So that's going to help the progress, to slow the progress in the fire from progressing any farther to the east. So that's kind of the intent there. Going further to the west, this field type and the terrain here is pretty rugged and steep, pretty inaccessible for crews to get into. So this is kind of a tough piece of ground to actually get some firefighters in right along the fire's edge. So what we're doing is backing off the fire a little bit here and looking for what we call indirect opportunities. So the crews have identified some opportunities, and those opportunities extend up this west flank using existing road systems to connect the dots to keep that fire from progressing to the west and to the southwest. Moving up to the west end of the fire, what we're calling Division Echo, this is definitely another one of our top priorities. This fire has been very active for quite some time up here in this northwest corner. And the crews have identified, once again, an existing road system that ties all the way into the 204 road, the Roan Creek Road. And that's going to be our primary containment line. So we're going to make sure, make our best efforts here to keep the fire south of the 204 Roan Creek Road, as well as east of this two-track system. Crews, as we speak to now, they've had quite a bit of planning in here. A lot of hard work has gone into establishing these control lines. And the crews tonight are establishing some burnout operations. And what that does is it removes the fuel in front of the fire, as this fire is going to continue to progress to the west. And it kind of reduces that fire intensity and slows the progression of the fire down. And it kind of reduces that chance of the fire to continue to move to the north and to the west. So that's kind of the goal and our objectives up here. And there's been a lot of hard work done up in here by our folks. Moving across the north end of the fire. Same progress here. The folks have been doing some burnout operations right along the 204 and the Roan Creek Road to keep that fire south of the 204. And so far they've been successful here up until this point, as well as quite a ways to the east here. So continuing on to the east here, we've got a lot of engines and crews patrolling and monitor, especially around these structures, to make sure all the good work maintains and we keep that fire calm down in here. And so far, so good. It's really looked really good in here all the way to the east. Continuing to the northeast. Once again, this is looking really good. This not very much, very little fire activity in this northeast corner, particularly around all the structure protection. All the homes in here that have been protected for the past 5 or 6 days. It's gone really well. Things are looking really good. Swinging around Roan Creek Road that connects to some dozer line here that was put in about 7 days ago. All that's connected to where the fire's edge kind of stopped and kind of hung up itself in the Book Cliffs, as well as a lot of natural barriers is what we're calling a lot of, very little vegetation where this fire stopped. And that's why this fire kind of hung up and stopped where there's very little vegetation to continue to burn to the southeast, which is a good thing. So that stopped the fire's progression naturally, which has really helped things out. And we were able to reprioritize some resources in more of our critical areas. So this entire east side, right along the fire's edge, has not moved in 7 to 8 and almost 10 days. So we're feeling very confident to this point in a few of these areas that this fire is going to kind of stay put and not move any further to the east. In the event anything were to heat up along this perimeter, we do have what we call a contingency plan or a backup plan that's already been established along this road system, all the way back to the Roan Creek Road, the 204. So we can always implement this if we need to. However, at this time, we do not need to, and this fire is looking really good, and we plan on doing no burnout operation plans here. This whole east flank is looking very well. So, and that brings us right down to the starting point right here at the furthest southern end. And once again, this is looking really good. So from this progression all the way to the east, along the fire perimeter, along the 204, the fire is looking really good. It's calmed down, and we're focusing more on the northwest, where critical burnout operations are happening right now, and that'll continue for the next 2 to 3 days. And then, of course, in the southwest corner, where we've seen a lot of the fire activity, it's been very visible from town and Grand Junction. And that's about the end of the report, where we're at today.
Hello, my name is Lisa Krederman. I am an incident meteorologist. The incident management teams brings in forecasters like myself to, number one, provide for firefighter safety, but also to help plan on how to manage and fight this fire depending on what kind of weather systems are coming in the way. So I'm going to show you a few slides and show you why this fire is behaving like it is. So first off, I have the drought monitor for the state of Colorado, and those red colors, those orange and red colors, are severe to extreme drought. And we have been in that extreme to severe drought since mid-May, and that red has just been growing and growing as it just keeps getting drier, and we're not seeing any of that precipitation. Next graphic. This is a chart from Grand Junction, and if you can see the circled red area, you can see those abnormally hot temperatures. The weather pattern that we got into brought in southwest flow and just brought a lot of dry and hot weather into the area from basically the Great Basin and the desert southwest. And that ended up, right now, we're only 53% of our average precipitation for the year. And as you can see, back into June, we just haven't even had really appreciable amounts of precipitation. Next slide, please. And now this is a weather station that we use that's placed near the fire, where we record the temperature, the humidities, the wind speeds. And what I have highlighted in the box is where our humidities just tanked. The minimum humidities during the day, the maximum humidities at night, they were all below 20% chance. And what that, 20%. And what that does to the fuels that are around here is it just does not give them a break in the nighttime. Those humidities that normally should be creeping up into the 50, 60% range, and that helps revive that vegetation at night, we just weren't seeing that at night. And during that time, we also had really strong winds out of the southwest that brought us red flag conditions, red flag warning conditions. And what that means is speeds of 25 miles per hour or more with those humidities of 15% or less. And what that does is it alerts the land managers and fire crews that just be prepared for fire behavior that is pretty extreme, and especially with these very dry fuels. So that's when we saw those really big runs of this fire that was heading northeast. Next slide, please. And now this graph shows you what kind of state that that vegetation is in. The three graphs are of different kinds of vegetation, and it's just showing you how dry those moistures are in that vegetation. We actually have hit record low moisture in this vegetation. So that's also showing you why, just with giving this a little wind and just still dry, those fuels will just take on fire a lot more easily. Next slide, please. And now this is looking at a 7-day outlook for precipitation. And as you can see where the star is, where the fire is, there just isn't much in the cards, unfortunately. We have a big high pressure sitting over the Great Basin, and it's not going to move very much. So that's bringing us these very high temperatures. It's also keeping this smoke over us and under these inversions. So you'll continue to see that for at least a few more days. Next slide, please. And then finally, just to give you guys a bit of an outlook for the 1 week on the top and 2 week outlook on the bottom. As you can see, this high pressure is just going to stay over the Great Basin area. So we're going to have these really warmer than average temperatures, as well as drier humidities and less chance for precipitation. There is a little bit of push that we'll probably see mid next week, and that's that top right graphic. We'll start to see some precipitation coming into the northwest corner of Colorado, but it really won't probably stay very long. And that's all I have for weather.
Thank you, Lisa. And now Sheriff Valario will be joining us from his office. So give us just a second to switch scenes.
Can you hear me? Hi, folks. Can you hear me okay?
Yep, go ahead.
All righty. So, well, folks, thanks for being patient and being with us, and got a lot I want to get through. I try to get through as quickly as possible. First and foremost, I want to thank Incident Commander Dan Dallas and the whole team. I mean, these guys are the consummate professionals. They do this for a living. They know what they're doing. The experience, the expertise is just amazing. So I really appreciate them. And I know Dan said that they're here working for us, but they're here knowing what they're doing, and we yield the floor to them because they're the experts. So to the whole team and to the 750 folks that are working this fire, thank you very much. We appreciate it. So a couple of things we want to talk about. Some good news. Looks like we're going to be lifting the evacuations, and a lot of folks will be able to get back into their homes. Sometime tomorrow. It's probably going to be late afternoon or evening. We want to work with the power company, make sure we can recharge all the lines. We don't have any transformers blowing up or anything like that. So once that's ready to go, we're going to start planning on people returning to their homes. That area that will apply is the homes along County Road 204. And that's from the fire blockade to the junction with Brush Creek Road, or 209 Road. So Roan Creek Road 204 and up through Brush Creek Road 209. So we're really glad that we can get you to return to your home. I want to talk about a couple of things that you have to think about when we do return. These are coming off of a flyer that we've printed up, and we'll be providing those at the roadblocks and hopefully hand those out to many of you. Take a chance, grab one and take a look at it. So we want to talk about some of those things that are concerning when we do return people to their home. The first thing I would tell you is fire behavior is crazy. And once you get home, I would suggest that you at least sort of retool, refit, and sort of get back into a pre-evacuation mode. We're not anticipating we re-evacuating. We wouldn't let people in if we thought they were needed to evacuate. But again, fire behavior is just crazy. So once you get home, get settled, get some things done, please. Maybe get back into that pre-evacuation mode by having a to-go bag ready, making sure medicines, pets, things like that you've already taken care of once are ready to go, so that if we do have to pull that trigger and say, you know, we're putting you back in a pre-evacuation or it's time to evacuate, you're all in good shape and nobody's scrambling, nobody's panicking. So that would be the first and foremost thing. The other thing is, if you're not already signed up and getting alerts from us, and I'll repeat this again if I remember, you can go to GARCO 911, GARCO 911.com, and you can sign up to get alerts that we send out periodically as far as updates on the fire. So let's talk about a little bit of what's going on. Again, once we allow folks back in, we are going to ask for some restrictions and some cooperation. We're asking that travel really be restricted to 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. So that we don't conflict with heavy fire truck and equipment traffic. Again, we got to yield for those guys to get the fire put out so that you know, we can all kind of return to some level of normal. So please travel really sort of limit that from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. And once you're there, we really ask you to stay in your residence. We realize some folks might need to go to work, but really to leave your home to go pick up groceries, go to work, come back. This is not at all a pass to be able to drive around, look at the fire, go up different roads, get viewpoints, get pictures. We have plenty of pictures and photos and videos out there available for you. So again, really just kind of hunker down at the house and only necessary travel. And again, like I said, be ready to evacuate again. One of the things that we do ask you to do, of course, is watch out for fire trucks and safety. And when you are driving, put your headlights on, because that makes it easier, especially in a smoke environment. We can see those headlights a long ways off. And again, more than anything, we're concerned about life safety. We don't need people getting into car crashes or somebody unnecessarily being injured. I'm kind of touching on some of these things. You'll be able to read through them as you get this document. One of the things that we know, again, there's going to be hot spots within that fire zone. Not everything is burned in that perimeter that you just saw on the map. So don't be surprised if all of a sudden you see a smoke flume, you see something kind of blow up and burn up. That's understandable, and that's anticipated. If you do see something that you think might compromise a structure or somebody's safety, please let us know. Call 911 and we'll investigate it. But again, don't be surprised if you see an occasional flare up, and that could be literally for several weeks, if not longer, within the burn area. Some of the couple other things I want to touch on. Be aware of down power lines and power poles. Again, I don't know what the assessment is on that, but occasionally we'll have a wire that'll drop, or maybe a pole that'll go down. Very dangerous. Don't approach it. Call the power company. Call us. Call 911, and we'll get that taken care of. Some of the things we're going to see in a little bit down the road is in any type we have a fire, we clear the vegetation that holds things in place, and that could result in some mudslides, some rock slides, depending on the terrain, and during heavy rains, which someday we're going to see. We're going to get rain, we're going to get moisture, we're going to get snow. So that can continue either this fall or into the spring next year. So be prepared for that. You may or may not have power or telephone service at your home. Again, the power company is doing everything it can to recharge those lines. But again, that might be limited. And if you have landline phones, again, that might also be limited. So to be prepared. We want folks to get back to their homes as soon as possible, but understand there's still some kind of mitigating factors that we're dealing with. We want to talk specifically for the next few minutes about food safety. I know that it's kind of interesting with all the other things we're worried about with fires and floods and mud and all that, but I have to tell you, food safety is really a major concern for us. If for no other reason, as you all know, our medical folks are pretty well busy with the COVID-19 issue, and we don't need folks going to the hospital with food poisoning and dealing with that. So I want to talk a little bit about that. When food is exposed to heat, whether it's in cans or jars, if you can at home or canned food off the shelf, when it's exposed to heat, fairly intense heat, that can damage that can cause things in the can, even though it appears sealed, even though it's in the jar, that can certainly create some serious, quite frankly, medical issues. So if you feel like in your home where you keep your food in a pantry, in a cupboard, or in the garage, or wherever you might, and you think that stuff has been exposed to any type of heat, please just discard it. Anything that's been refrigerated or in the freezer, absolutely discard. If something needs to be refrigerated or frozen, even though by the time you may get back into your home, your refrigerator might be on again or your freezer might be on again, a refrigerator will only keep things to the necessary safe temperature for about 4 hours, and a freezer, full freezer, 48 hours, half full about 24. So you may get home and find that things are frozen in your freezer and think it's good. They're not. They've been sitting there exposed to heat for however many days you've all been evacuated. Please discard all those items, particularly those meats and anything like that. We are in the process of trying to set up some dumpsters at the intersection where the Cowboy Church is. And that is at the intersection of 204 and 213 by the Cowboy Chapel. We do not have those dumpsters there yet. We're hoping to get them there by tomorrow, and that's the best place we can ask you to take those. They'll be secured in the dumpster. Please don't throw them out, discard them out in the open. We still have bears and coyotes and other issues that'll just exacerbate our situation. So we'll try to get those dumpsters out there and available as soon as possible. And again, I can't stress enough, please just discard those foods. It's not worth taking the risk and getting sick and adding to difficult time you've already had experiencing this fire. So I think really that's it. That's kind of mostly what I was going to talk about. folks, I want to thank all of you for the patience that you've shown, the appreciation that you've reached out to our folks, and the thoughts, and thanking everybody for everything they do. And I would really encourage you, if you see some of these folks that are out there fighting the fires, you see our deputies out there, we're supplementing that with other law enforcement agencies, private security, please just thumbs up, a thank you, because they're working really hard in very difficult conditions, trying to keep you safe and do the best we can to get you back in your homes and get this fire extinguished. So I'll turn that back over to the an incident command. Thank you for allowing me to take the time. If anybody has any questions, you can call Garfield County Sheriff's Office, reach out to any of our folks that are out there on the roadblocks. And again, anything that might be emergent, please don't hesitate, call 911. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Sheriff.
Thank you, Sheriff. And now we will have Bill Barlow with the Grand Valley Power to provide an update on the electricity based on what the Sheriff just said.
Thank you. Hi. Yeah, I'm Bill with Grand Valley Power. As the Sheriff said, we're going to start trying to energize the line. Right now, we've got it de-energized. Clear back here at about Dry Fork. We're going to start bringing it up in pieces and parts, little bit by little bit, all the way up to till we get to 209 Road. So our thought is we have to trim a little bit of trees, as we bring this up. But after we get to this point, then we'll start bringing up Clear Creek and then Kimball Creek as well, a part of Kimball Creek. We're not going to be able to get clear to the end. So it'll just, like I said, it'll just be little pieces and parts, depending on what we're allowed to do with what the fire does over here. So just so you guys know, we made an effort today to go to each residence, kind of look over our equipment and around our equipment and whatnot, and made the determination that each place is good to go. But at each place, we, whether it was a main breaker or a set of fuses, we tried to disconnect right at the meter. So when you guys go back in, if you can see that there's digital numbers on the meter saying that basically that there's power at the meter, you might want to go ahead and look your place over. And then when you feel it's safe, go ahead and re-energize there at whatever device I've opened up. If you have any questions, give dispatch a call, or in some cases, I left my phone number if it looked a little different. So anyway, so you can go ahead and get hold of me too. So with that, I mean, that's about all I've got. If are there any questions out there? No, if not, then let me introduce our communication specialist, Dana Pogar. She's got a few more little things that she'd like to talk about. Dana.
Thanks, Bill. Good evening, everyone. First off, Grand Valley Power would like to thank all the firefighters, first responders, and agencies working to fight the Pine Gulch Fire. As our crews continue to work to restore power to our members, we ask that our members look to our website at gvp.org for information on outage updates. You can find that under the Outage Center tab, and also our social media platforms on Facebook and Twitter at GV Rural Power. If members have specific questions regarding outages on their property, they are welcome to call dispatch, which can be called at 970-623-8553. We thank our members and community for their patience, and I'm going to pass it over to Brenda for our Q&A.
Thank you, Dana. Okay, and it looks like we have a couple of questions that have come in, so we'll have Pat read the first one.
First question, have the oil and gas facilities and compressors on the southwest side of the fire survived intact?
We will turn that over to Pat with operations.
So it's a good question. There's been a lot of questions about oil and gas. There's been a lot of oil and gas threatened to the south as well as to the northeast. But our primary focus so far has been in the southwest corner, where there has been some that have been identified as damaged, but a good majority of them has survived, or the fire hasn't reached them yet. So the biggest thing that we put together over the last couple of days is kind of an oil and gas liaison group that's contacting and working with the power companies in oil and gas, and identifying those gas lines, those oil well sites that are of concern, whether they're threat or damage, so they can get assessments on where the fire is going. We want to get ahead of that, which we feel like we are. And then moving forward, protecting those sites, which a lot of them, there's very little vegetation to burn. So it kind of depends where they're at, but that's a good question. A lot of assessments are ongoing.
Next question, Tom's question. Also, if you could just paraphrase the question, they just can't hear me. So, any plans to expand the air operations within the next 2 to 3 days?
Okay, so the question was, are we going to expand air operations over the next several days? The answer would be yes. We've definitely beefed that up today. We've had a lot of fixed wing large air tankers, primarily working on this northwest corner, pre-treating what we call these lines that we had in place, running east-west here, and also running north-south here. What that retardant does is kind of delay the fire progression, but also in this case, where the retardant was laid down by fixed-wing aircraft, the large air tankers, was to provide us an extra buffer when we start putting fire on the ground here, which is happening right now, to prevent the fire from spotting or crossing our containment features. We have 4 Type 1, the large helicopters currently signed to the fire, as well as 2 Type 3 helicopters. So in combination with the 6 total helicopters and currently the 2 large air tankers, as well as aerial supervision over the fire, the entire perimeter, we'll maintain that, and we'll increase that as the fire continues to progress and move to the west. The stuff with aircraft and aviation is we are sharing some of that aircraft with other priority fires in the area. So that'll just continue and be assessed.
Next question, Tom's question. If the fire is only at 7% and it's in those difficult sections, how long do you anticipate this is going to take?
Okay, the question was with the fire containment at 7%, and kind of time frames on how we may increase that containment. And with the fire still very active in this northwest corner, and there's a lot of open line on this west side of the fire, that there's a lot of work to be done. There's a lot of work from this northwest corner all the way down to the southwest corner, as you can see. And looking at the east side comparatively, we're looking very well, and we're looking at anywhere from 12 to 14 days plus on this side of the fire, a tentative timeline, but a lot can happen based on weather and extreme fire behavior that we've seen in the past, and what could continue if we get high winds and the burnout operations continue. The fire will continue to grow a little bit. You can expect some continued fire activity over the next several days, with burnout operations, as well as the main fire continuing to slowly move to the west. So that's kind of a vague timeline on progression. It's going to take a lot of work.
Next question's 2 parts. So someone that's just on the southwest part, they're asking, first part, is there enough of a low vegetation buffer between the southwest part of the fire to protect the homes and the farm? Also, wondering whether pre-evacuation is likely for that same area.
Okay, to answer the first part of that question, and I'll repeat that, is kind of talking about the vegetation and the transition that we briefly talked about on the southwest corner. So as I mentioned, along this edge we have the Book Cliffs, and then as that transitions to the south where the fire currently is at, it's a very thick vegetation, and it's burning pretty consistently and pretty hot and very well and very visible. As our fire crews have assessed the fuels conditions in the road, all the road barriers in here to the south, that fuel really diminishes as you go south, and it becomes barren. There's a lot of dirt, there's a lot of rock, And what that does is that's going to slow that fire progression down, where firefighters can actually gain access and start to gain a little ground and gain a little more containment in this country to the south. So to answer the second part of that question, kind of pre-evacuation or evacuation notices, we have several management action points out here that aren't currently on this map. And what that does for operations, as well as the other team members and firefighters on the ground, it gives us advance notice of if the fire were to progress before that trigger point is hit on what the next action should be. Looking at these, evaluating this to the southwest, the potential for it to move and to actually threaten structures is somewhere in that moderate range. Just rough. It very much diminishes. Once again, it's based on the fuels, the natural barriers, what we call, the dirt and the rocks. So it's pretty unlikely to get that far southwest.
Next question: does the state of emergency need to be called to get extra resources here? I'm not sure if that's
So the question was, does the state of emergency, does that need to be declared to get us more resources? It's a great question. I think as increased fire behavior, obviously that's not our decision, but the challenge that we have with resources when we get to certain planning levels is what we call it, which we're currently at planning level 4. We're in high competition for resources. Particularly we're in high competition for hotshot crews, hand crews, helicopters, fixed wing to large air tankers. Those are primarily the resources that become very hard to get this time of year when we have so many priority fires. And it's based off of values at risk in homes and things that are threatened. They kind of bump you up on the priority list on getting those resources.
follow-up question to the burns off the 204. You can just specify where exactly those burns are going to take place, and is the goal to keep the fire to the south of the 204?
Okay, yeah. So the question was, where exactly are we doing those burnout operations, and are we specifically holding the fire, south, for example, of the 204 road? So obviously the answer is yes. The 204 road, the Roan Creek Road that runs east-west here, that is currently our primary holding feature. And that's our primary objective, to keep that fire south of that road system. So there's been a lot of work done, as you can see, over the last 7 days progressing to the west, where we've been successful. And we hope that's good. That success is going to continue as we go west. Once again, I'll reiterate, this is just difficult ground. We're looking at a flat map here, but there's a lot of lines. There's a lot of topography, a lot of drainages, ridges, steep country that the crews are having trouble accessing, getting into, as well as when you do burnout operations. You've got to be very much careful, strategic, very precise, and it's got to be right with the weather. So specifically, here's where we're doing the burnout operations. Burnout operations are going to continue along the Roan Creek Road on the 204 that connects with a containment feature right here. It ties into a road system at this point here on the map and is going to gradually work to the south here. So burnout operations have started as of a couple hours ago, and this is the location where they're starting. The reason they're starting at this location, once again, it's topography driven. It's upslope. We need to introduce fire carefully here to allow that fire to slowly back, where their fire intensity is less than if we were to light off the line here, where we'd have high fire intensity and we'd have issues controlling that fire behavior.
Is there a house? I think what they're getting at is it past the last house on the 204.
Gotcha. So the question is, our burnout operations, at least our controlled edge along the 204, is it past the last structure? And the answer to that is yes, it is. And that last structure has been, is continuing to be secured and monitored, just like the other residents to the east. As they progress here, we have fire engines and hand crews carefully working around those homes, making sure they're secure. and there's no damage. And so far we've been successful with that.
Last question. This is just about Division Delta operation. How well was the fire being controlled or redirected in Division Delta?
Okay, the question is kind of how are we controlling Division Delta along the fire edge here and where the fire may be going. As I mentioned before, firefighters are having a difficult time accessing the edge of this fire where it's currently at. And once again, it's very steep, rugged terrain. There's very little barriers to the fire where it currently sits. But as this fire gradually and slowly moves to the south and possibly to the east, it becomes more favorable for firefighters to actually access fire and actually start to get some containment and possibly get some line production in there where we can actually put a control feature, a control line. But right now, the backup plan here is using this road system to the east to potentially burn out if we have to, only if we have to keep that fire from progressing any further to the east. In this country, to the south of Division Delta along the fire line perimeter, they're going to wait and see if this fire can continue. We just can't safely access that with firefighters right now. It's just not very safe for firefighters to engage where it's at. So there's going to be, the priority here will be aviation and helicopters, slowing the fire spread here to the south and try to keep that fire in check.
Thank you. And it looks like that's all of the questions that we had in the meeting. So we just want to thank you for joining us this evening. I want to thank the speakers for coming and for their presentations. Our information officers will continue to monitor the Facebook page. So if you do have a question that you didn't get answered in time, we will watch for that and we'll get those answers for you. As far as places to get information, the easiest, if you are a Facebook user, is to just go onto Facebook, find Pine Gulch Fire, follow the page to get updates. We post frequently throughout the day. If you aren't a Facebook user, the easiest way to do it is do a Google search for Pine Gulch Fire and look for InciWeb. And it is an incident website that actually has information about all of the incidents across the nation. You can then find Pine Gulch Fire, and we do the same updates on InciWeb that we do on Facebook. Thank you for joining us and have a good evening.